Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. The Bengals are looking for a defensive coordinator. The last name we didn't get to talk about from the last episode, only a name that popped up since then, since the time of recording, and I expect they'll just pop up this week, so maybe I'm a little late, is Matt Eberflus, the former defensive coordinator of the Colts and the Cowboys. That's when he made his name, but Eberflus was hired as the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and his defense continued to perform well, but he was a terrible head coach. So honestly, if you're asking me, would this make a good defensive coordinator? Yes. I remember his defense as being very complex. The coverage is confusing quarterbacks. He's always at a high rate of turnovers for every defense he's coached. But you don't want him game managing. He never had a good quarterback in Chicago, so maybe that's part of it. But his game management skills were terrible. He'll fit right in then. But I think this would be a good hire. For one thing I asked when we talked about a potential defensive coordinator, I wanted to emulate what the Chiefs did. And getting Steve Spagnuolo as a defensive coordinator, that is a very good coach at that position, that failed as a head coach and won't get another head coaching job. Maybe he will. He's up for some interviews. But the point there is that you want a guy that you know you're going to have for a while that is probably too good to be a defensive coordinator, but not good enough to be a head coach. Find that guy in that middle range. And Matt Eberflus probably fits that. And I don't know if it's Eberflus or Eberflus, but we would learn if they do sign him how they exactly pronounce it. But today's episode is not about that. Today's episode of Bengals on the Brain is about the big questions going into the offseason. And starting with number one, I wasn't sure we got a few episodes lined up of tackling these questions that they're going to have. But to start, I started with some free agency looks because we got an updated estimation on salary caps for 2025. And with that, I posted Bengals are expected to have this much money. And people were confused. And then I posted the Bengals should be extending these guys. And last episode, I said I expect them to sign Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendrickson. And there were some comments pushing back on that. So I wanted to start because it's hard to really go into free agency or even draft prep work without having a plan of what to expect. And I think extending Chase, extending Trey Hendrickson, extending Tee Higgins helps you plan for how and what we want to look for. Because if you let Trey walk, or he's under a contract for 1 year, but if you trade Trey, or if he retires, or if he demands a trade, or if Tee Higgins just walks in free agency, well, now you have a lot more needs, right? You need a receiver, you need a defensive end. So, can they extend these guys? First question. Should they extend these guys is a different question. Today's episode is could they extend all three guys and still have enough money to fill their other holes? And the answer to that is yes. And I will show you how. And that's what this episode's about. So remember, when I do this, you have to remember as we're doing this, cash and cap are two different things. How much a player is making is cash. How much cap is just an accounting tool. So we're going to focus on cap space and a little bit of cash about how much the player would be getting. So follow me. I'll show you what we're doing here. We're on overthecap.com, OTC in the top left-hand corner there. This is my preferred website to use when talking about salary cap, cash, future free agents, whatever it may be. Anything that has to do with the financials of building an NFL team. Over the Cap, to me, is the superior website, and that's what we'll use. And if we get nerdy with numbers, I need to put my glasses on. On the right-hand side here, you can see their current free agents. On the left-hand side, you can see the players that are currently under contract. So I'll scroll down a little bit. The box at the top here, though, I want you to see that, and this is what we're going to work with. You'll see right here, 47.5 million of cap space. This number is not set in stone yet. We don't know the final cap until about 2 weeks before the start of the league year. So if that's mid-March, about early March, when they meet the last time, we should get it. These are estimations that are usually pretty close to what you should expect. But we've got rollover already in there. Everything you should worry about is already accounted for. $47.5 million in cap space. Now, what their cap calculator allows you to do is choose whether or not you want to extend players on the right side here, or cut players, redo their contracts, whatever it may be. And you can see the dead money and cap savings right here if we cut players, and we will use this a lot. So the basis of the show today and what I want to do is starting with 47.5 million, which ranks about 15th or 16th, depending on where you're looking in the league. So a lot of teams have a lot of cap space. The Bengals are always, the thing is, if you tracked who has the most cap space every year for the last 10 years, Bengals would probably be top 5 because they never overextend themselves and push cap hits in the future years. Now they should, and that'll be a big discussion we have when we get there. This is just laying the groundwork for what our expectations are when we're talking about signing and extending these guys and what we can possibly do. Because if you look in 2026 as well, they're projected to have 170 million cap space. And then 2027, which gets even crazier because we don't know how far things are at that point. But really, when you look at the total liabilities, this is who's under contract for 2025. They have 230 million, pretty much 231 allocated for as of right now. They only have 120 million for 2026. So you really see that they don't have a lot of players extended beyond 2025. This is why we should feel confident that they want to and should extend and will extend Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendrickson, which is the basis of our argument today. So, do they have enough to do that and still sign free agents and have money to play with? This is where we start now, okay? We're going to start with the cuts as any team would do. And the cuts I expect to happen for plenty of reasons. We'll go through each one. Sam Hubbard, first. They would save $9.5 million if they cut him, and they would have to eat a $2 million cap hit. So 9.5 is what you get. You don't have to subtract 2 from the 9.5. If we want to say we're cutting pre 6-1, which you can pick post June 1st or after June 1st. The Bengals never pick after June 1st. If you do, you take the $1 million cap hit this year and then 1 million next year if you choose to do that. If you want to save as much money as possible for this season, teams probably would do this. Bengals are not doing that, or they don't. If they do, it's a sign of modernization. So we're going to cut Sam Hubbard, and you see that number at the top of the screen here now goes to 57 million right away. So let's keep it moving. The next one is Sheldon Rankins. We're taking a $2 million cap hit by cutting Sheldon Rankins, but we're getting 8.6 million. So just 2 moves right away. 2 guys we expect to be released, and you can use that. I mean, at that point, you're talking $18 million in cap space. You can go sign a top free agent defensive tackle or defensive lineman with that money there. So the Bengals are now at 65 million. Alex Kappa, again, you're going to take a $2.25 million cap hit, and you're going to gain $8 million. We're now at 73 million on 3 guys we should all expect the Bengals will cut. Now we're going to get to 3 guys that we don't know if they'll cut. I feel they probably will for a couple of these guys, and we'll talk about it. I didn't talk much about Hubbard, Rankins, and Kappa because I expect it to be done. Now, there are some people that are concerned, well, Hubbard is a hometown guy. He's been a team captain, things like that. All true. Maybe they rework his deal and they pretty much rip it up and re-sign a new deal, and he's goes down to like a $4 million cap hit. Sure, if you're just telling me we're going to save $4.5 million, still, well, either way, we're going to save money. And I think something could be done with Hubbard, but he's not going to be back at the current salary he's at. There's no way possible you can keep him at his current salary. And I think even the Bengals agree with that. Rankins and Kappa are easy. They're clearly not worth their value. They did not get the value this year for either of those guys, and you can find replacements. They played at replacement level players even when they played. You can find that in the 5th round, to be honest. We don't want to do that. We want to upgrade. So those are easy cuts, and we're sitting at nearly $74 million. Next one that I think we have to be aware of is Geno Stone. Geno Stone would only carry a 1.5 dead cap hit. Now he's only 26 too. That's the other thing. Like I think Stone still has some upside and still could play better. Where Kappa's 30, Rankins is 31, Hubbard's 30. That's why those guys are also easy cuts. Stone at 26, I go, he could play better with the right defensive coordinator. So we kind of need to see who that defensive coordinator will be. We are still waiting for that, clearly. But let's say we go with it. Let's say we cut Geno Stone and pick up the $6.5 million. The Bengals are now at $80 million total. The next guy on the list is Zach Moss, 28 years old. You would save 3.3, and I think even the cash is a little bit more than that. And you have to take a dead cap hit of 1.5. So do you think you can spend this $3.3 million better than if you keep Moss as a RB2? I think you can. And number two, because he had a neck injury and it sounded serious, I don't know what his future and how well he could hold up in the NFL going forward. Neck's pretty important for anybody, but for a running back, that's definitely an important body part for them. I would say probably your legs and then your neck, via how much these guys are lowering their head and taking contact. So I'm going to cut Zach Moss, and I think I can spend that $3 million in better ways. The other ones here that get a little tricky are Jermaine Pratt. Pratt did not play to the level I think they would like. Then he never had that same year that he got extended. His contract year was fantastic. He looked really good. He's never been able to match that. Logan Wilson has. I don't think Jermaine Pratt has, but I do like Pratt. And for $5.8 million, can I spend that better? Can I find a better linebacker for that price? I'm not so sure. I think you can draft one, but with 6 picks currently slated for the Bengals, you better draft one in round 2 or round 3 if you expect to start them. So I'm iffy on that. But let's say we do. Let's say the new defense coordinator comes in, wants to bring his own linebacker, needs a little something different at that position, because I think they need to get better at linebackers. So don't get it too twisted. I do think they need to get better at linebacker. I would love if it was a second round pick came in here and like was a tone setter, stud linebacker. I'd be all for it. So we're going to cut Pratt as of now and move forward from there. That puts us at $89.4 million in cap space. The other one that's interesting here is Cordell Volson. Because he has played so much in his career, his cap number has inflated. He originally signed a 4-year, I think it was $4 million deal. So he's already about to make more than that or equal to that his final year because he has played so much. If you cut him, you get that 3.575, and then you only have to eat a 1.6, or I'm not a 1.6, $164,000. So that's nothing. But is he worth the depth at $3.5 million? He could be. I think you could go and sign a guy for similar depth or for veteran minimum, a Cody Ford type signing for $1.7 million, and you can save that money. So let's say they do cut Cordell Volson and just say, it's not worth it. I think you could actually trade Volson and probably get a 6th or 7th round pick. But either way, that would take the salary off the books and provide you with what you have now. So nobody else here is really a cut candidate, right? You're not going to cut Cam Taylor-Britt, I don't think. $4 million, you can't find a starting corner for that price, even though he had a down year. And you would take bigger dead cap hits than you would want for any of these top guys. And I don't think we want to cut them anyways. The rest of the guys are just all young players on cheap deals. So it's a pretty strong clean house type situation, but you have a lot of free agents. So $92.9 million, we could say that's pretty close to $93 million. And if you remember, it did not affect any of the future cap number. If you remember what that was, it was 170. None of these guys were signed after this year anyway. So it doesn't, cutting a guy in his last year of his deal, the Bengals have always done that. If you're concerned, go look at their history. Go look at Andy Dalton, at Geno Atkins, at Dre Kirkpatrick, at Ray Malaluga, at Vontez Burfict. Go down the list. They have cut pretty much everyone in the final year of their deal. I know sometimes we say, and some people will use the term that the Bengals honor the length of the contracts. That's why that's the real guarantee they give you. It's not really true. The last year, they will cut you there. Whether it's Trey Waynes, there's been signings they've had. John Miller, Preston Brown. There's plenty of guys they have signed and cut them in the final year. And we're at that point again with a bunch of these guys. Next thing you could do with this is you can franchise tender. You can transition tender Tee Higgins, and you can extend him. I think if that's priority number one, and this is what we're talking about, I want to start here. And I want to say, okay, with T, at the very least, and he's going to be ranked, I was looking at a free agent ranking from Underdog Fantasy Saturday or Sunday, and they had him as the best receiver and a top 5 free agent this year. And I'm like, great. I agree. he should not see 1 second of free agency. Because if you can't get a deal done with him, you should franchise tag him. At $26 million and you have $93 million, what are we talking about? Tag him. It's only barely a $4 million raise, $4.5 million raise from what he made last year. That's worth it, in my opinion, when you don't have a lot of other pieces. But the Bengals should work on extending him. So with Tee Higgins, he wants to be in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow and the team would like to sign him. He has a new agent with the hopes of making this an extension with the Bengals. I'm going to follow a similar contract and similar player from last year. Michael Pittman with the Indianapolis Colts signed a 3-year, $68 million deal. Now I think the price goes up, of course. T had a good year despite the injuries again. I think you have to protect yourself a little bit there anyway. But at the same time, I think if it's a 3-year, $75 to $80 million deal, I think that's within reason. Now, I think T would blow that out of the water if he goes to free agency. So if it's all about money, he should go on to another team. But clearly it's not when you fire David Mulligetta, who's known for getting you the most money possible. So with T, we're going to say this then. We're going to say total years here. I want to increase this to 3 years. Okay. And we want 1 void year on there. 5, 26, 27. I think I want to take a year off. Yeah, 3 year with 1 void year. There we go. And we're going to give him a $30 million signing bonus. So instead of I think you could just use an M. Yes, I can. So a $30 million signing bonus instead of the 26 and some change tag. So this is incentive for him to sign now. This is incentive for him that you'll get more money and you'll get it now. And the Bengals will give a big signing bonus. They just won't guarantee money into future years. So we're going to keep it Bengals centric here and say 30 million guaranteed. Basically your signing bonus. They usually will do your signing bonus plus your base salary in the first year. So we could add that to it. We could even say if it's the Bengals 32 million is guaranteed, let me try that again. Let's say 32 million and just make it even. And keep the base salary as low as possible because we're trying to pack this roster as much as possible. We could bring up that base salary if we want to. Looking at the Michael Pittman contract and trying to see very similar to that. If we're going to say 75 million over 3 years, we're talking about 25 million per year, obviously. Math on this show. We try not to do that too much, but we will. The Bengals will have some bonuses at times. We're not going to worry about it. We're going to try and keep it as simple as possible. I keep that one thing that's trying to remind me to tell you guys, and hopefully I'll get to it at the end. But let's say the biggest cap hit comes at the end of his contract, where he's got a $25 million base salary that year, which means we're looking at already, I think we can go even 15 million here. Oh, we're in good shape already. So if we're at 22.5, 32.5, so let me do the math here, 32.5, 22.5 plus 7.5 for the void year plus 8.6. Oh, we only got to add a little bit to this one then. We only got to add about 4.9 million. So let's just say it is 5 million base salary this year. Now, this is 3 years, $75 million by adding up the cap number on the right side. He gets 32 million guaranteed this year. He gets a $30 million signing bonus. And guess what? Instead of 26 million on the cap hit, instead of 22 million cap hit last year, 21.8 on the tag, we have now reduced his cap number in 2025 to 12.5 million. We'd have a big one here in 2027, but it is what it is. You could even lower this if you wanted to even it out and space it out a little bit more. Just for an example here, let's say 7 million this year, right? We take it, add 2 million to it. Let's say 16 million here. So we got 3 million out there. Let's say 22 million here. So the cap hits there. You can get to a $29.5 million cap hit in 2027. Still very reasonable for a player like this, but reasonable cap hits for the next 2 years, even if you want to do it this way. Let's say transact and we got it. Our cap space goes down a little bit. Not as expensive as it could have been. Still at $79 million. Easy. The next one I'd like to we're going to put our eyes inwards here. Look at Trey Hendrickson. Even though he's going to be 31 years old this year, I think he's 30 right now. So this tells you what he'll be for the 2025 season. We want to extend Trey. And we want to make him a highly paid player. right, for this team. Let's add, we got 3 years. I want to add 1 void year, and I got to remember to explain the void year at the end because it's important. And the Bengals have done it a couple times. They did it with Joe Burrow. They did it with Riley Reef, a rare tool that they've used, but you can use it and you should use it these days. Now, this process is a little bit different because Trey Hendrickson has 1 year at an $18.666, $18.7 million cap hit. What we can do here, though, is because it's an extension, this gives us the opportunity to save a little bit of money in 2026, 2027. I'm adding 2 years to this, and I'm going to look at last year's defensive end that was paid pretty well. Danielle Hunter went to the Texans, 2 years, $49 million. I'm going to say, Trey, you had a great year. We're going to extend you, give you an incentive to do this by raising the price here and say 2 year, $55 million. It basically will turn into a 3 year, $74 million deal for Trey Hendrickson. He would get paid a ton. We're talking big signing bonus this first year, $25 million signing bonus. So what I did here for Trey Hendrickson is I lowered his base salary this year. Now, this doesn't matter to him, right? We know he's going to get a $25 million signing bonus. The cash he was going to get was $16 million. So it's the incentive for him to not only get that cash right now, but get a raise here, right? We're giving him from 16 to 25 million. We're giving him a $9 million raise. I'm giving it to him all right now. This is guaranteed money. We're also going to guarantee a little bit of his base salary. Clearly, obviously, I don't know why this number is 32. It doesn't matter. The point here is that we're ending up at $72 million in cap hits over the next 4 years. Cap hits this year will go up from 18, I think it was 18 point, what would we say, 18.7 up to 21. So we're only giving them $3 million bigger hit. This keeps them for the next few years, only getting up to 23.25 million total. I mean, the highest cap hit, 23.25 million in 2027. Not a big deal. Our cap space still now 76. And I haven't done anything crazy that the Bengals couldn't do. I didn't give guaranteed money in the future years. I didn't give anything crazier than a signing bonus that you have to give. I'm giving reasonable, comparable contracts with raises. Nothing crazy here. And now we're going to move on to Ja'Marr Chase because easy one. Let's get these 3 done. You were very close last year. And if we can mimic that, I think it was going to be 4 years added. So not only do we have 2025 already under, we want to add 4 years total. So it'll be 5 years. I'm going to add another void year. Very similar. We're going to do very similar to the Justin Jefferson contract. Very similar to Justin Jefferson, 4 years, 140 million added. We could even go even further if we want to say it was 150 million and say he gets that raise that nobody got. Because if we want to beat Justin Jefferson, we want to beat CeeDee Lamb. Doesn't really matter. The idea here is I just want to give you a rough ballpark. We're giving him $40 million to sign. I think Justin Jefferson got 38. So $40 million signing bonus. We're going to guarantee in the future years. This is something they do not do, but this is why the deal didn't get done last time. Bengals had rolling options instead that happened later. Let's do them a little bit earlier. Anyway, Chase is supposed to have a $22 million cap hit this year. We reduce his base salary. We give him $40 million in cash, signing bonus. He makes $40 million, goes from $22 million to $40 million. I think he'd take that, an $18 million raise this year. Cap hit now drops to $10 million by doing that. And if you look at Justin Jefferson, you say, well, whoa, why is cap hit dropping? What do you think Justin Jefferson's base salary was last year, this year, 2024, when he signed his extension? Base salary, $1.125 million. What was his cap hit? $8.6 million. Off an extension, $8.6 million. They turn his 5th year option, same as Ja'Marr Chase will be on, to an $8.6 million hit. We're turning it into a $10 million hit for Ja'Marr Chase. We are saving money. This will be the first one we actually get to save money. As this goes, you'll see his base salary goes up a little bit, very similar to Jefferson. Cap number goes from 10 to 13 in 2026, still in great shape. $33 million cap hit. We get a big jump there. Then a $41 million and a $43 million cap hit in 2029. We are not worried about that. That is so far in the future. We can restructure. We can do whatever we need to do. This is a contract that is team friendly, that gets Ja'Marr Chase signed. Even if we wanted to increase these numbers and say, all right, he wants $5 million more on his contract than anybody else. Fine. There it is right there. Now it's a 4 year, $145 million extension, brings his cap number up to 18 million in 2026. Again, we are not worried about that. Hit transact. Whoa, the cap space went back up. We started with what, 93, I think it was. We have just extended Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and we have $88 million in cap space. The difference, why the Bengals don't do this, why they haven't, maybe they will this year. And I expect they will this year, and they've already looked at these things. They have more cash this year to spend because guys like Joe Burrow, and I'll click on it. I'm going to let this simmer for a second. And we'll look at Joe Burrow's cash. When Joe said, I already structured my contract to help facilitate these moves, he was right. I didn't notice it at first, but now I do. Cap space is not an issue this year at all. It will always remain with the Cincinnati Bengals a cash issue, but they've got some relief. So what does that do to the future years? They'll still have 107 million in the future. In 2026, 2027, still looking at 143. We're still not overinflating ourselves at all by extending these guys. Now I'm going to show you one big reason why they have more money this year. We're clicking on Joe Burrow and looking at his contract. All right. Okay, looking at Joe Burrow's contract here, and you see all the numbers, his cap hits, 29 million, 46 million, 48, nothing crazy. It even gets to 52 in 2027. Again, nothing crazy. 2028, 53, and then 57 is the highest in 2029, which many of these guys we extended. Think of T and Trey, 2025, 2026, 2027. They're off the books in 2028 when his cap hits finally start to get bigger. Bengals have a void year here. And I want to talk about the void year because I didn't get to do it when we were signing these guys. The signing bonus. When you get a signing bonus, it has to be, and then Joe Burrow got a $40 million signing bonus. You can see at the top. The $40 million has to be dispersed over the length of the contract. You don't have to do $40 million the first year and for a cap hit. Clearly, if you got $40 million signing your contract extension in 2023, but your cap hit's only 19.5, well, when did they put it in there? Well, you can hear right here, or you can see it right here. Signing up there. I'm trying to scroll down, but Bengals elected to put $8 million pretty much every single year, plus what they already owed Joe Burrow from his rookie contract, and then put it on 2023. So they spread that $40 million up over the next 5 years. Void years allow you to put some of that cap hit over here into the future. Void year allows you to say, okay, how we account for the difference between cash and cap, which it doesn't show cash here. I'll get to that. The cap isn't what he makes. So as you see this, I started with the cap 46, 48, 52. That's not what Joe Burrow pockets every year. For that, this is just how you want to account for all the money you're going to give him, which is a void year allows you to add some money to the contract, which is where you see $9 million. Now, if we go to cash breakdown, now we get an idea of what Joe Burrow can get as cash. In 2023, he got $45.5 million in cash. That's what he made. 2024, this season that we just saw, Joe Burrow made $65.7 million in cash. That's a lot. He had a big signing bonus. If you come down here to 2024 option bonus, not signing bonus, sorry, option bonus, $55 million option bonus. The following years are only 10, 10, 10, and then a 5. So the bonuses aren't huge. Bengals aren't going to have to fork over a bunch of cash. The cash in 2025 is $35 million. The cash that they owe Joe Burrow, that they're going to pay Joe Burrow, drops $30 million for the next 3 years, for 2025, 2026, 2027. You want to pay Trey Hendrickson, Tee Higgins? You already paid Trey Hendrickson, Tee Higgins last year. $22 million for T in cash, $16 million for Trey Hendrickson. $38 million. You just saved $30 million on Joe Burrow's contract. You can't scrum up $8 more million? You can, easily. You paid it for Sheldon Rankins and Geno Stone and Sam Hubbard and all these guys we cut already. So when you want to know the secret to allowing the Bengals to do this, it's that jump from $65 million to $35 million. $30 extra million can go a long way in extending your players, especially because I think they already factored in and were expecting to extend Jamar Chase. So really this money, in my mind, goes to T and Trey. And I think they can afford it. I think this right here makes it easier to do. Why I'm so optimistic. So as you can see from that exercise there, they can do it. They could do it if they wanted to. In fact, they could do it and still have a ton of cap space. Now, the hard part is that we're talking about the Bengals. And the Bengals don't tend to maximize cap space. They don't tend to push cash over cap. Like competing teams do and should and are. If we look at the final 4 teams of each conference this year, and we're going to have an episode on that where we talk about what we can learn from the playoffs. Because what teams do in the playoffs and what they have, whether it's good defense, good old lines you're seeing, there's a lot of examples, a lot of things I'm already noting that I want to bring up. One of that is the willingness to push cap into future years, to reduce the cap this year, pack the roster as much as possible, and actually go for this thing. For the first step, though, is to see, can they do it? Is it feasible? Could they extend all 3 guys? Yes. The answer is easily yes. If it was the Eagles, not only would they extend all 3 guys, they would go out and sign 4 free agents and make a trade. So is it possible? Yes. Will the Bengals do it? I think they will. I think the plan in the building is to extend all 3 guys, and that's why I wanted to show a realistic way for them to do it. But then after that, will they fork over money and spend that other $80 million on free agents? I don't know that they will. So that's the other part that comes into this is, would they be cash poor at the end of extending all 3 guys? Based on their history, yeah, they'd be going right up against the budget. But the budget does allow for those 3 to get extended. What they do afterwards will be where we start our free agency look, our draft look. How do you improve the team? Because that's not adding value to the team. That's subtracting value to the team in a lot of ways, other than reducing the cap hits of Jamar, reducing the cap hits of Tee Higgins compared to last year. Those are things you're doing. So maybe you're regaining some value that way. But in terms of how much money you're spending, obviously you're reducing the value of those players and reducing the surplus you're getting. So they'll have to find that. These 3 players were part of the Super Bowl roster, and now you're going to pay them 5 times as much. How do you get back there then? How do you make up for it? That's where we go from here. You have to hit draft picks. You need to hit another Tee Higgins at a different position, hit a Jamar Chase at a different position, hit a Trey Hendrickson in free agency at a different position. You do that, that's how you recoup and get back to where you need to be. So just extending these guys, the job wouldn't be finished. That's just the start. And that's why I wanted to start with that today. This has been Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics, episode 138. Until next time, Uday.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.